And we are live.
Excellent. All right. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Wednesday, March 17th, 2021 Garrison Board of Education regular meeting. Start with a roll call. Dusty, will you call the roll, please?
Jocelyn Apicello.
Here.
David Gelber.
I'm here, and can I stipulate that this is iced tea? Okay.
Duly
It's not,
noted.
it's not bourbon. Okay.
James Hoke.
Here.
Madeline Julian.
Here.
Courtney McCarthy.
Excused.
Matthew Spicer.
Ah,
I see him. Are you there?
There he is.
Sorry, froze for a second. Am I here? You hear me?
Thank you, Matt. And
Yeah.
Sarah Tormey.
Here. Okay. Now move on to the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Next up, we have accept agenda or agenda changes. Read the recommended action, unless there's any recommended changes. Jocelyn?
Wait, I'm looking. I wonder if, just like last time, we'd want to move public comment up to after the presentations.
So my thought on that, and Dusty had provided some guidance, was to open it up after the budget presentation for comments on
great.
the budget.
Okay.
And then because we have that policy reading later on that may be connected to some of the presentations, we will also do public comment at the end as well.
Sounds good to me.
Everyone
Thanks.
okay with that? All right. Thank you, Jocelyn. Okay. The recommended action is be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Garrison Union Free School District hereby accept the agenda as presented. May I have a motion, please?
So moved. Oh, second.
Great. Dusty, will you call the roll, please?
Jocelyn Apicello.
Aye.
David Gelber.
I
James Hoke.
Aye.
Madeline Julian.
Aye.
Matthew Spicer.
Aye.
Sarah Tormey.
Aye. Thank you, Dusty.
Mhm.
Okay, we're going to move on to board communication and presentations. We begin this evening with the Anti-Racism and Equity Strategic Plan presented by our equity consultant, April Francis. Carl, would you like to go ahead and promote April for us, please? Welcome, April. Thank you.
Hi, hello everyone. Just
Hi.
getting my Zoom box here. How's everyone doing?
Very well.
Welcome
Thank you
back.
so much for joining us.
Yes, no problem. It's good seeing everyone. So yes, we worked with our task force last week to finalize the plan. I'm sure that the board was able to see the draft, and we're just going to go over more so the components and the main idea of how to implement it coming this coming school year, including the end of the rest of this year. Sorry, I'm here tongue tied. So I think Dusty's going to display the plan and just, some background as regards to the plan, right? When we think about strategic plans or work plans, it's always like a living document. I think I mentioned this before, like our Constitution. You can update it, you can make changes as people change, as teachers change, as leadership changes. The plan should still be there. The idea, the mission, the priority areas, but other things can be updated and initiated. So this is just a cover to let you know that it's at least a 3-year plan. And some of the work plan is only going to be about the rest of this school year and into the next school year. So Dusty, we can go to the next page. So we thought it was really important to ensure to include within this plan the resolution that the board read in January on the 20th, so that it shows that all the way from at the top, the stakeholders are part of this and are dedicated to doing this work. And we can go to the next page. As mentioned, the last time I came, the task force developed a mission statement and 3 priority areas. So the mission statement is there. As you can see, the 3 priority areas each have goals that are set. And these goals are to be attained over the next 3 years. We can go to the next page, Dusty. I'm not sure, did you want me to read over the mission statement again, or are we okay with that? Carl, you
I
want us
think-
to read over the mission statement?
April, I think we're okay. You did a very thorough job last time and the board has had plenty of time with it. So I think
Okay.
it'd be great to get into the priority areas.
Okay, great. So as you can see, we have priority area 1, which is implement racially inclusive curricular and assessments. And as mentioned prior, the priority areas are based off of the New York State Education Department's CRSE framework, or the Culturally Responsive Sustaining Education Framework. It's a 64-page document, and it's guidance for districts in our state to create plans such as this. So as you can see under that priority area, there are 3 goals. What we did as a task force is each group, everyone was allowed to choose a committee that they wanted to work on. And through that work, they were able to devise what steps they wanted to implement within this first year and a half. Understanding that you were not going to be able to fulfill all of those goals and achieve everything within 1 year. So if you can see, for instance, goal number 1 under priority area number 1 states include diverse representations of BIPOC people in literature and provide students with regular opportunities to have experiences with people from races, cultures, and backgrounds different from their own. So the first step to implement here was to participate in a self-audit. We've talked about other audits that have happened in the past, but focusing on maybe read alouds and having grade band level teams of teachers reviewing the material that the school is utilizing. We also set a target date for each step that you want to implement. So for this specific step, it would be by June 2021. Resources and budget allocations were also included. And the most important piece is to hold accountability by having evaluations and check-ins. So for this particular goal, it's to ensure that there are committee members. So who are those teachers on the committee? There's a schedule that's going to be created with agenda and action items and a completed self-audit report that could be shared with the, eventually, which we'll talk about, the DEI District Board Committee. So we can go to the next page, Dusty. And I'm not going to read each goal. I just want to give everyone, an overview so that when you're reading it, you have an understanding of how it's organized. So we're still in goal number 1, priority area 1, goal 1. And then another step is in unison with an external curriculum auditor to conduct a district equity audit. And so the first step would be, vetting the auditors, getting quotes, then working with that auditor on what you need to review through an equity lens. And we just have some sample resources of some auditors that you can utilize. And that list can be, longer, but it really has to do with the group that's really going to support your equity plan and also help you set the needs assessment to allow for growth. So that is that area there. We can go to page 3, Dusty. So priority area 1, goal 2, very similar to the first one. This one is focusing on social studies and science. But I just wanted to show you on the resource area, you see hyperlinks. So anybody, any stakeholder can click on those hyperlinks to see some of the supportive resources that will help the district to attain this goal. And we can scroll down again. And then you see priority area 1, goal 3 is to teach students to debate and practice having civil conversations about difficult topics with people who disagree or are different from them. So one thing I'll highlight here is that this would begin in next school year. So some of what we already spoke about will begin now through the spring into the summer, and some of this work will begin next school year. We can go to the next page. So here we have priority area number 2, engage all stakeholders in ongoing professional development and community training. So this area really is about training all stakeholders. It talks about it's teachers, it's the PTA, it's your custodial staff, it's everyone that has a participation or a role in the school system. It talks about board training, community-wide book study. We can scroll down again. I'm so used to being the person to, handle the presentation. So this is different for me. So sorry about that. And thank you, Dusty. You're doing a great job. So here you have, updating our website to have your website to have available resources to the community. Collaboration, there's already been some collaboration going on, as we know, with the library. So collaboration with other organizations on equity and anti-racism initiatives. And once again, as you can see, the timeline for that. So this is something that you can begin this spring, that collaboration piece. We can scroll down a little more. So here we have, most of this work here is going to begin in the next school year. So a lot of the professional development criteria that is part of this plan really is going to start in summer for some of those who will be doing some curriculum review, but really for the next school year, kicking off with the superintendent's conference day, so that it will set the tone for all the teachers. We know everyone's going through a lot this year, and things are very different. So we are thinking about that, but ensuring that equity is still at the forefront of the work. So it's balancing understanding, our social emotional well-being, but also knowing that this work is very important. So that's why you may see some of the dates beginning once again in the next school year. So we can scroll to page 8. So here we get into priority area number 3, create a safe environment of dignity, respect, empowerment, and inclusivity. Right. So once again, we are highlighting the need to hire an external equity auditor, and that aligns with priority area 1. So a lot of this is connected. If we scroll down a little bit more. So once you have that equity auditor, that's one piece, but also creating community listening and ongoing learning rounds. So this is a form of a survey or an audit in itself. Your listening rounds is qualitative data. So by listening and hearing the stories of those in the community and sharing, you're gathering information that is going to help you grow as a community as well. As you can see here, it says develop community conversations around the equity plan. So sharing this plan and then allowing people to come and have a conversation about it. Create a more formal alliance for community forums, develop community cultural events, and survey the school community as to the development of affinity groups. So these are a very important piece, but then establishing a district level EDI board committee is really the next step after the task force. So we know a task force has a specific task, and when that is achieved, right, we kind of move forward. So they achieved their task of creating this equity plan, but now you need a more permanent group that's going to, oversee and help to continue to create work plans and strategic steps to include, which we hope will be part of the comprehensive plan eventually, right? So as you attain or get to or feel like you achieved certain goals, you would want to then allow this equity plan to be part of your full comprehensive school plan. One of we say the equity traps and tropes is siloing equity plans for too long. So you want to ensure to include it eventually. But for now, it's important to have it stand out so that you are very explicit and intentional in the work that you're doing. We can scroll down to the next page. Okay, so another great part of having strategic plans is when you achieve something. So we can say for priority area number 2, goal number 2, you were able to achieve one of those goals that you set out. So if we just scroll down a little bit more, Dusty, I just want to read what number 2 says. Yeah, that's good. It says number 2 says, recommend to the board a resolution affirming anti-racism and equity. And a lot of work went into that in the subcommittee that focused on priority area number 3, creating it, drafting, sharing, updating, and it was, successfully adopted by the board. And so you can say, this is something we completed, right? So this work is ongoing, right? Equity work is hard work. It can sometimes feel like we want things to change immediately, but we have to understand, especially as part of the mission statement, if you're trying to eradicate or dismantle racism, that's not going to happen overnight, but we can't give up when we don't feel that we see immediate change, right? We have to continue to push forward, because giving up allows us to fall back into past practices. And that's another trope, right? Just saying, oh, this is too much, this is too hard, let's just do what we were doing before. And we're at a pivotal time in our society, in your community, in your district, that we have to make it count. And so I really appreciated the time that I had working with your team, and I definitely will be here if you need any support moving forward, and if you have any questions about the plan. So I think that's the last page, Dusty.
April, I want to thank you so much for this. Yes, I wanted to move out of the screen share back so that we can get questions. Just begin again with a thank you to you for coming in, to our board members who served on this committee, to our community members, our teachers, our staff, our administrators. We're incredibly grateful for the time and energy that went into the plan that was presented. Now, with that said, I'd like to open it up to questions to the board. Does anyone have any questions about what was presented for April? Well, I can jump in because I have some. Or Madeline, did you have your hand up?
I didn't have a question, but I did want to thank April. We could not have done this without you, April. Thank you. And it made such a huge difference that we had the teachers and also administration, and Miss Meg was there, community members. There was a lot of dedication and time put into this document. And it looks great, and hopefully we'll be able to adopt most of the goals and items. And you said it's a document that may change, because as we learn new things, we may edit and change as we go along. But I do like that you did mention that it's something that is not going to happen overnight. So we're looking at, in the next 3 years, let's really go back and see where we were, and keep and do the audits to see how we improve each year. So thank you so much. It means so much to see this document. Thank you.
Thank you, Madeline, for your words. Yes, I know we did a lot of labor in this, and I have to thank Jocelyn and Carl for helping me pull it together. We did some time and pulled it together, tweak things, because when you have a lot of different voices on the different pages, it was a Google Doc, then to bring it all together to have one voice was really powerful. So thanks, Madeline.
David, question?
April, you've done this many times before. And I'm curious to know, and I think this is really a tremendous addition to what we're doing here. What tends to go wrong? If there are things that not everything, I presume, goes right over in your experience. So where are the problem areas? Where are the failings that you've seen in your experience?
So I kind of mentioned it a little bit when I was sharing. It's allowing the equity plan to be just a silo. So it's like, well, they are doing the equity work, like that group there, or that person is the equity person. So that's one. It's not any one person doing it. It's all stakeholders have to play a role. And that's why I like the framework, because it says every stakeholder that has to do with a school system has a role to play in this. So it's ensuring that it's not one person's job to ensure that this is moving forward. The other piece is sticking to the strategic plan, coming back and ensuring that you're doing checkoffs, because a lot of times if the work seems too hard, it is much easier. People feel more comfortable going back to what was, because you feel comfortable doing what you already know. So ensuring that people feel supported and that there's safe and braving space, that the administration, the board supports the educators in doing this work is very important too, because when you don't have that support from leaders, then it becomes very hard for teachers to want to, or to really do this work with fidelity. So I would say those are a couple of areas.
Okay. I have a couple of questions for you, April.
Mhm.
First is about the sort of overall scope. When we're talking about equity, I wanted to be clear from the plan, like when we're talking about looking at our literature, for example, and having teachers go in and maybe do a deep dive into, I'll pick read alouds as the example. When we talk about diverse voices, are we also talking about ensuring that we represent different genders, that we represent the LGBTQ community, that when we talk about diversity, it is beyond one group? Is that part of this process as presented and envisioned for going forward?
Well, yes, definitely. I would say that since the task force name is anti-racism, that it starts with, you know, the anti-racist portion, but then you also are looking at all of those pieces that we talk about make up diversity. So socioeconomics, LGBT, gender, you know, gender identity, sexual orientation. So it's inclusive of that. But the task force main agenda or goals at the time was to first, let's talk about anti-racism and equity. So it's an anti-racist and equity task force. So when it's inclusive of the other things that you just mentioned as well.
Great. I was just thinking as we, you know, commit our teachers' time, which I understand is very valuable, especially when we're talking about professional development time. And as we're looking to spend district funds on the equity audit, I want to ensure that we are inclusive of all those different diversity groups as we move forward, which I think we'll see in our policy later. The other question I had is, I know there's been a lot of changes to Title IX recently, and Jocelyn and I were on a training for this as well. Was Title IX mentioned, which is a new policy dealing with gender and gender bias at all during the work on the task force?
I would say not explicitly, but that's what makes this plan amendable, making it it's your work plan for this year could be, this is what we're focusing on, and then you can include the other pieces like you just mentioned. So Title IX could be included into that. With Title IX, there's also, you know, gender inclusive bathrooms. There are a lot of other pieces that can be incorporated. And I think the plan gives you the ability to do that.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And one more question, sorry guys. This one's really for Carl and Joe. Some of these components that we're talking about, and I know it says in our budget presentation from last time that we had budgeted for this, but I just wanted to confirm as we're talking about the equity audit, for example, those are items that we've already budgeted for the next calendar year, including the professional development, both for the board and for the teachers as needed.
Joe, you can fill in, but Sarah, yes, we have a specific budget line for consultation, you know, and an auditor, and I think the two will go hand in hand. But in addition, the PD work, we have additional lines for professional development. We also have a line for curriculum, textbooks, and all the materials that we want to adopt. So I think the money will come from different places, but there is one specific line that we set up to make sure we can do the audit and continue with consultation as we believe it's necessary.
Okay. Thank you all for listening. Those were all my questions. I appreciate the answers, April and Carl. And does anyone else have any questions for April while we have her? Any other board members? Okay. Well,
Sarah, if I this
Yeah.
is a bit repetitive, but I think also coming from me, we started with 11 members in the summer, training with April. We did a lot of learning, and I think that was really important. That was essential. And then we opened up at April's recommendation. We did expand the group to 16. And we had, again, as you mentioned, a cross section: parents, teachers, administrators, board members. You know, when I think back, you know, we look at this finished product and it came together so nicely, but, you know, it made me think of probably the 40 or 50 hours that people gave and dedicated to the process, meeting in person. And then a lot of people worked offline. So I just, as superintendent, I want to thank each and every one of them. Of course, a big thank you to April. As Madeline said, we could not have done it without April's expertise and guidance. But really, I think we're proud of this work. I think it's a proud moment for us to present it to the entire board for your consideration.
Thank you, Carl. And that really brings me to my next question for the board. If we don't have any further questions regarding the plan as presented, what do we see as our next step as a board? Do we wish to take some time, review this, bring it back for adoption? Does anyone have any suggested changes before we adopt? Did the committee have an intention for this evening?
I would say that since I had the honor of working on it with everybody, including April, thank you so much, that I don't have any kind of suggested changes. So I think, I mean, I don't know if the process is to adopt, and we can adopt whenever we want. So what I'm saying is I'd be fine with adopting tonight, or we wait until a future meeting and adopt it. But that's why I'm not suggesting anything else, because I don't have any suggested changes.
Thank you, Jocelyn.
I think it might be really good. First of all, this is a tremendous document, and what I mean by tremendous, it's big, and we should be reflective about how to move forward most successfully. So I think maybe we need to reflect on it, or even do a kind of quasi workshop on it and think about it, so that we move, I guess, deliberately and thoughtfully and effectively with the plan. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, I to me it does, and I also think that this is an opportunity to get maximum exposure of this work to the community, and so there might be an opportunity to let people know again that this is happening, and to bring more people in the community into this, into an awareness of what we're doing.
But what do you mean by bring more people in?
Oh, I just mean,
Sorry, you cut out, so I missed the first part.
Sorry. No, I just mean, just publicizing the fact that we're doing this, and so that as many people as possible in the community can be aware that this is pending.
Well, I think it'd be more impactful to let people know and be aware that we passed it. I think, raising publicity about a pending strategic plan
You may be
doesn't
right.
have as much weight. I don't know.
The one thing that gives me pause is I'd like to ensure that it does align correctly with all of the changes in policy and our policies we recently passed. For example, I did pull policy, our recently adopted Title I policy. I don't know if you guys remember it. We updated it last summer, which also calls for an equity audit. And I want to make sure the language that we're talking about all aligns. And that all our policies align. Now, maybe that can be done after we pass the strategic plan as well, but to ensure that everything that we're doing doesn't happen. The word that really stuck out to me, April, that you said is silos, that we don't pass one policy here, we don't do one thing over here, but we find a way to make sure that the work we're doing is all connected and linked together and supporting each other. So I'm still trying to wrap my head around how to best do that to ensure that our policy committee work lines up with that. That's not to say we don't need to pass this tonight. It's more that I want to make sure that we're doing that.
I'll throw in one more thing. I think it's a good point, Sarah. We definitely want it to align. And we even have a policy coming up for discussion later that very much touches on this. But I'll go back to how April started and what Madeline echoed, that given that this, even as we adopt, can be living, I would imagine that we could amend or add something as we see fit. I don't know how we decide how that would happen, but whether it's the superintendent, the committee, or the policy committee, whatever it is. But I do think there's a lot of room to add as time goes on, as April suggested.
Madeline?
And just to add, like Carl mentioned, it was a 16-member task force, and there was a lot of discussion about the workload that it would mean for the teachers and the new programs with the new math initiatives. And all of that was discussed in terms of the timeline. So we know that we need to look at the curriculum. There is a first step, second step, third step, the self-audit, and then also some PD, and then start looking at the curriculum. So I feel comfortable moving forward with this today, given how flexible it is and given that we've looked at the schedule and also took into consideration a lot of a lot of other things, especially with the teachers. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. That was actually going to be my next question. You really, that was a great response to what I did ask of, are the teachers supportive of this? Do they feel they have the time? So that really makes me feel good to know that they did. And you did have a number of teachers across different grade levels, correct, involved in creating this plan.
Yeah, and Ms. Emig also led
We do.
priority one. Sorry, Carl.
Okay.
We did. I would just add, I apologize. There was a very good cross-section, primary, intermediate, middle school, special area teachers, a mental health professional, admin. So you had a really good cross-section. Same with the parents.
So thank you. The sense I'm getting from the consensus, and Matt, please jump in here if you want to add anything or have a question.
I've been listening. I guess the only question I have is I'm not totally clear on I apologize if my internet's going in and out. I'm not totally clear on if we didn't pass it tonight, what we would do between now and the next meeting when we did pass it. Like, it feels a little bit like it would be sort of a road delay for the sort of process, but if we might not actually do very much now and then we would just adopt next time. So my gut is, maybe that's wrong. I guess there's a question at the end of that. Feels like we're ready to adopt, but yeah, Dave.
I think Jocelyn was right to say that this will get more visibility if we just go ahead and pass it than if we wait. I don't know exactly. I mean, I think my suggestion was basically stupid, and Jocelyn was more.
It was definitely not stupid. It was definitely not
No,
stupid.
no, no.
No stupid. We're just talking through how to best do this.
Yeah.
I think you're right, and I think that and I would be in favor of going ahead and passing it.
Okay, I have the sense that we have consensus to move ahead. Dusty, I'm going to go to you for a protocol question then. If we wish to adopt this plan tonight, can I have your guidance on how best to do so?
We don't have an actual resolution on, but you could just ask for a motion to approve the plan as presented.
Okay. I'm going to ask for a motion to approve the Anti-Racism and Equity Strategic Plan as presented. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. All right, Dusty, would you move to a roll call vote, please?
Jocelyn Epicello,
Aye.
David Gilbert,
Aye.
James Hoke. I think we lost James.
I think we lost James as well.
Okay. Madeline Julian,
Aye.
Matthew Spicer,
Aye.
Sarah Tormey.
Aye. All right. Thank you all. April, I want to thank you again for your work on this. I appreciate everyone's thought. Again, David, there are no stupid questions on this. I think it is worth taking the time to make sure we do this correctly so that we are able to really implement this plan in the way it was intended. So hopefully we can do that. And I'm sure we will be reaching out with questions. We may need to amend it, but we can do that. So.
I just want to say thank you for once again allowing me to work with your team. It's been my pleasure. I am so proud of your district for taking this step and moving forward. It's good work. It's hard work, but it's good work. So I appreciate the time.
Okay.
Thanks, April.
Thank you, April. We'll be in touch
April.
soon.
Okay. Right, guys, we are moving on to our next presentation for the evening, the new GUFS website. Carl, could you promote Mr. Kaufman for us?
Sure. I welcome Scott Kaufman. He should be here momentarily. And let me just begin by saying Scott has been working for, I would say, nearly 3 months on completely revamping the district's website. It was very dated, not only as far as its functionality, but in the content. So it was something that I think we all agreed was needed to be addressed to improve communications. So I just want to compliment Scott. He's here just to give you a quick overview of some of the work he did, some of the goals, and it was a real team effort led by Scott. And I'd like to turn it over to him, and I think you'll enjoy this presentation.
Can you hear me? Just making sure. Everyone can hear me? Okay. Before I get started, I just want to I just want to thank April and the board for doing really difficult work. Being an agent of change is really trying, and it's difficult, and it requires a lot of stick-to-itiveness. And the fact that the board is moving in that direction, and April is really putting forth a lot of effort. It's a lot of noble causes. So I just want to thank you before I get started on my presentation. So I'm going to focus on 3 areas of the website. The first, I just want to touch on why. Why did we look at the website? Why is this a priority? And what's the impact on the community? And what's the impact on students? Then I'm going to focus on how we organized and strategized to create a system that's sustainable over time. And then I want to talk about the fun part, which is the final product, and let everyone kind of see what we've done and what we've been working on so hard over the last 3 months. So the why. A website, the most important part of a website is accurate information in one page. I don't know how if you know this about my own personal life, but I'm a board member in my own district. And I know that if we don't have accurate information, social media creates the reality of the information. So if there are some questions about, oh, is this day an A day or B day, or is the board meeting here or there or whenever or wherever, if we don't have that information in one centralized, accurate place, then everyone, it's a free-for-all. So the first goal was making sure we have accurate, up-to-date information. The second goal we had is that the website is a tool. It's a tool for parents, it's a tool for our community, it's a tool for our students and our teachers. So anything that relates to human resources. A lot of times I will tell you, before we kind of got this rolling, everyone would run to Dusty and say, Dusty, do you have that form? Do you have all this? Do you have all that? If it lives centralized in one location and it's updated, we know that staff are using the most up-to-date forms. We know that students are accessing the most up-to-date resources. And then we know that the staff has access to every function that they're going to need throughout the day. So not only is it a place for accurate information, it's a place for valuable tools. The third part, and the fun part, is it's a celebration. It's a celebration of the hard work that's happening from the teachers. It's a celebration of all of the things that your kids are doing on a day-to-day basis in school. Now, pre-COVID, we would have concerts, and we would have board would do a walkthrough and see all of the great work that the teachers are doing. That doesn't exist now. So we need a medium and a platform by which we can zero in on all of the work that's happening and all the fun that's happening with kids, but really all the engaged learning. And we need a place to broadcast that so people can see it. So that's the why. The how was a little bit more complex because it required us to really think systemically. One thing that we wanted to make sure was that information never got bottlenecked in one area. If everything relies on one person and that person's out sick one day, or that person changes roles and they no longer serve in that role, or whatever the case may be, then all the information stops going to that channel or that part of the website. So we created redundancies in our system. And if you allow me to share the screen, I could show you visually what that looks like. And you did, so I can do that. Okay. So what you're looking at here is a very colorful website workflow chart. So the first thing that I did when I came in and I was assessing and auditing our systems is I looked at where the bottlenecks were and said, all right, how do we break down these barriers? So I organized a team. My team consisted of Sarah Lasardi, Dusty, and our public relations, Maria Slippin. And through those people, you can see that they all have site admin access, which means they can access any part of the website to make any kind of modifications, even though they're going to focus primarily in some of their own specific areas. They have access to everything, and that's important for how we operate. So the principal secretary, Sarah Lasardi, oversees the day-to-day operations and announcements that come from Allison Emig. And she also oversees areas of the school function. So that includes the athletic director, who has channel admin access, which means he can alter his channel. It's a very specific part of the website, and the school counselors, who also have channel access. You'll also see that I can be a secondary support. So I want you to think in terms of systems and the fact that we have primary and secondary. We have some redundancies in the event that someone's out sick that day, or someone needs a change to an athletic calendar and that person can't do it. We have a secondary person to do it. Now let's look on the district site. The district site, we have Dusty, who is serving as a support for the facilities and transportation, and the business office, who's going to have channel admin access as well. So you can see through the various roles that they have, there's different provisions, or there's different permissions, I'm sorry, that each channel has access to. But I want the big takeaway here is that there are supports built throughout the entire system. So we'll never have a bottlenecking of information, and there will never be the opportunity for information to be outdated or just really not usable. So if it changes, we can update it. You know, the one thing I'd like to add, April had mentioned early on in her presentation about the document being a living document. The website functions very similarly. It needs to be living. Right now, there's some areas around COVID that live right in the center of the website. It's because it needs to be there so parents can see it. Post-COVID, hopefully very soon, we won't need that there. It could move to a secondary site where it's not going to be as prominent on our website. So now I want to move to the final product, and it's the most fun part. But before I do that, I just want to say that I have to thank the teachers, and I have to thank the students for allowing me to get into the classrooms. When I had first started, I was walking around with my big camera, and I'm going into classrooms and I'm sending out emails saying, look, I just want to come in and capture all of the great work that's happening. Would you permit me to take pictures, and would you permit me to capture you in action? And they were so gracious, and people were sending me emails, come by third period and see what we're doing. And it was a way for me to really get to know the community of the school, and for people to get to know who I am, and then capture amazing footage of authentic learning. So what I would like to do is I'm going to stop sharing this screen, and I'm going to share the website so I could walk you through some of the elements. But as in any tool, I encourage you to look through it on your own and play with it and give some feedback. You're going to see a feedback tab. So without any more of my talking, I'm going to share with you another screen. I'm going to share with my sound on. So our website this is the district site that you are seeing. I don't know if you can all hear it. So that will be scrolling as you enter the site. That kind of just scrolls throughout. So as you navigate, it kind of plays on repeat. So that's just one area showcasing some of the work. On this section, we have our board announcements, and then I like to consider this. This is really Maria Slippin, and she has been so integral in the work here. She's our public relations person. This is where she's going to spend a lot of her time, is capturing the authentic learning. So you can scroll through and we give little details about what's happening and celebrating all of the magnificent things that are happening in school, with a little bit of commentary at the bottom. Over here, we're going to have our quick links. Now, this is at the district level, so I really want to stress that our district level calendar lives here, our property tax lookup, find a staff member, our board docs, the budget for the upcoming budget, and the daily COVID health form, which Melissa and I have been working to digitize. So we're going into a place soon where we're going to digitize that after we iron out all of the different elements. And here we have our upcoming events, and then we have just some of our spotlight and our local icons, or our global icons, I'm sorry, down at the bottom. So this is our district website. I'd also like to add that we simplified all of the different channels. These areas up here are called channels. Dusty and I had sat through many hours of training, so we have all the lingo down. But these are our channels, and we consolidated them, and we very thoughtfully put topics in areas where they organically fit. So you can see the business office, the capital project doesn't have a drop down. It's only it's one area with many subtopics. For parents, these are important parent links, community, and then our spotlight. Our spotlight is really about things that Garrison is if there is a highlight in the news, or an accolade that's given to us publicly, we want to put that on our spotlight, because what we want to happen is we want parents who are moving into the district, or people who want to join our team, to look at this and say, wow, this is what this community is really about. This is their value system. So that is the district site, and I'm going to transition to the school site, which is another change because we broke up the district to the school site. So there's two different caches of information. So if you go to the top left, you'll go to our school, and then here you have the Garrison School. I'm going to tell you that of all the pictures I've taken, and I think Carl definitely knows this, out of all the pictures I've taken, this happens to be my favorite. I just think that it was COVID outside. Paul Connors was relentless in making sure that the kids had an opportunity to practice their music. And I said, this is just a perfect shot to capture what COVID is. A little chilly, not dangerously cold, a little chilly. However, I think it just really was excellent. Again, here are our announcements, very similar to the district side. You're going to notice that these quick links are more geared towards what parents would find on a day-to-day basis. So we have our school building calendar, school dismissal manager, the parent portal, then the data assistance. So anytime we were formerly sending it out through Blackboard, hey, if you have a problem with your computer, please email us at datasupport.gov. Now you can just send it right, click that, and it automatically does a mail to. We have our upcoming school events, and very similarly to our district site, we have our stay connected. So all these are functioning tabs. And then student tools, curriculums and supports, school counselors section. And these are going to be updated in real time as things change. And I think the most important takeaway that I've spoken to each group about is that if you have parents calling you regularly for information, then that information should live on the website. This way, there's a centralized place for much needed information. So this is this is our website. One thing that I want to stress is that it's going to evolve over time. We are going to add things as our district grows and changes. We're going to add more relevant information. And like any good system, I'm going to go back to our district site, is this feedback form is very important. This lets us know suggestions from anyone who's using the website. It comes right to us. So if someone says, you know, I don't find the ease of access around finding the nurse's station, or I need more information on this, and we see repetitive requests for that, we're going to reflect and change. So that is, I know that was a 10-minute presentation backed by probably 100 hours worth of work, but I think that this was, I have to thank, you know, everyone who was involved with this, because this was a labor of love, and seeing it come together like this, I think was excellent. And these students right here were so elated to be part of the website, walking down the hall in slow motion. So so this is the final product, and I say final when really it's going to be our evolving product, but I think it's something that this community can be proud of. It's something that I'm proud of, and I hope the administrative team as a whole and our staff is proud of it. So I'm going to stop sharing, and unless you have any other questions, or we can start with questions, but I will stop sharing.
I'll jump in and say, Scott, thank you so much. This is great. I really appreciate it. I also want to just make a quick note that it does work very well on cell phones as well. I pulled it up, and I appreciate the effort that went into formatting for devices as well.
It was one of the areas that I made sure, because you have to format it a little bit differently. So you'll see that first picture with it's a second grade classroom. I mean, I know this website so deeply now, but thank you. And yeah, people access information from their phones. So it used to be just this gray screen with 2 buttons, and now we have the mobile ready site that's ready to go. So I think I think I want people to say, this is our school, and show somebody, you know, what we do. And I think that pride is going to be the value that we got.
David?
Scott, I just think this is fantastic. Thank you very much for doing this. I have, this may be a little bit out of place, but I have one content suggestion. Is that appropriate now, or shall we? How about asking each teacher? This is a great vehicle for getting people to know the faculty better. So what if you had each teacher tell us something about his or her life or his or her teaching career that we don't know? Not just an aspirational thing, but things that have happened. You know, give us a chance to really know these people better than we do.
David, I love that idea, and I would even suggest, even moving in that same idea, having kids interview teachers and having them be part of it. Now, this is a jumping off point. I mean, this is a few months worth of work, but I see this evolving into a product that kids could be proud of, that they can contribute. You know, you can have teachers that say, you know, I want us to feature something on the website. I mean, it can grow in any direction with the right inspiration, and I think that's perfect. I think your thought process is excellent, and I'm excited about it. So
Thank you. Do I have any other questions or comments? Madeline?
Thank you so much, Scott. There's definitely a lot of work. It looks very different. Thank you. And the videos are great. One question about the art direction, right? If you're gonna have different, I guess, different members adding different content, and they can go up overnight, is there some sort of way that we can manage the art direction so the pictures are not as stretched? Is there something that we can keep working on? Some of the images, the lighting on the images, that we can make happen, but when some sort of temp, or maybe it's a STEM project for the middle school. Just a thought on the art direction.
it's great that you said that. Miss Emig and I were having this conversation about broadening it, and I think that we're going to make sure that it fits into our system, which could change our rubric of who supports who. But I think making sure that every image that gets onto the website is not only aesthetically pleasing, but really captures what we're about. I think that, and Carl and I and Miss Emig have had this conversation on a lot of occasions where we want to capture learning. It's easy to get a posed shot of somebody smiling because they're happy to be in school, which is excellent. But I think we also want parents to see their kids are actively learning and engaged using manipulatives. So there is going to be a filter by which we make sure that the content is something that is approved by both Allison, well, really primarily Allison, Miss Emig, I'm sorry, and that will be kind of our filter of what gets on there. And then I would make sure that it content and technically it fits the pixels, because there is a ratio of pixels before it looks stretched out. I've had my hand in every single photo here, and I've really worked to make sure that they fit perfectly and the saturation's right and the sharpness is right and the hues are right. But again, it's a labor of love, so it's I don't consider it work. I considered it a really fun project to be part of, and it's really for this community.
Thank you.
Matt?
It looks fantastic, and
Oh, thank
it's user friendly as well. So thank you so much.
I have to say, that makes me feel really good. If you only knew how when I went back to Dusty about 50,000 times over the past 3 weeks saying, does this make sense to be here? Does it make sense? I just need to make sure it's user friendly. If it's not easy, it's not going to stick. It's not going to work. So thank you for that. And I will tell you this. I'm going to tell you 2 little details that are half embarrassing to say for a public meeting, but one is that I couldn't find the music that I was looking for, so I wrote it. So I wrote and performed that music because I needed something that was upbeat, but also had the feel I was looking for. And I went through all the free samples I could get, and I said, it's just not feeling right. So my wife comes downstairs, and I got my MIDI player and I got my headphones, and my kids are running around, and here I am composing this video. So there, I embarrassed myself a little bit. The other piece, the other piece that I really enjoyed is if you go to the website www.gufs.org and you look at the top tab, it actually has a very little G that's there. It doesn't say Blackboard, which is the company we use it for. We actually had to go into the coding to change that to make sure that it had our logo. And when I walked into the office to show them that, I think everyone thought I was crazy. Here we have all these beautiful pictures, and I said, but please pay attention to the little G that lives up in the top left, because that took about an hour. But anyway, I digress.
Jocelyn, did you have a question?
Yeah, just quickly, thanks for all this work, Scott. I noticed at the top, and I don't remember if you said it as you were going through, but there's the translate language button.
Yes.
So that's great. And the only thing is, at least for my computer, when I click on it, the font is all white, but if you scroll over it, you can pick a language, so it works. It's just hard to see. So, parents can click over to Spanish, and actually, like, it seems like every language available by Google. So it's a great feature. I'm glad that that's there.
Yeah, well, actually, what's interesting, as I was trialing this even before I got on, it was gray background. It could be a developer quirk, but I'll look into that. I'm gonna write that down because
it works. It just if you hover the mouse over, right, you can see that.
Yeah, but it should look differently. I can't.
Yeah.
If I'm gonna stress over the little G, believe me, I'm gonna stress over this too. So I'll make sure to get that ironed out.
Thank you,
Scott,
Scott.
that music is terrific. Maybe my 12-year-old is really into Billie Eilish. Maybe we could get her to write some lyrics for it, and turn this into something really
There
cute.
you go. There you go. No, it's great. I actually did it using GarageBand, so it's not like Pro Tools that is a very advanced software. But you'll notice the other thing is that when the music stops, the lights turn out at the end of the video, which another thing that took me some time. It was the attention to detail. I couldn't let it go. So there, I'm done embarrassing myself for the evening. But that was but I thank you for giving me this task and allowing me to be creative and run with it and kind of capture what you can't see that's happening in the school building. And if that's the gift to the community from the staff is that this work is happening, we need to celebrate it, we need to document it. And there's many more pictures that didn't make the website that will as we start to rotate.
That's great to hear. One thing I'd like to request, and I don't know if this is for you, Scott, or for Carl or Allison, I would love to have this sent out to our parent community and ask for their feedback, not wait till they visit the website. I think that would be very helpful. So we get a sense of what is working for them and what is not. It's been a while since we've updated the website. So I think this will be a welcome email.
So Miss Emig and I were waiting till we had the board meeting. I actually released it to the staff a little bit early today, so they can play around with it and provide feedback on that little feedback button. So I was able to get some feedback, not tremendous. It was at the end of the day, but I think that Miss Emig is going to send out something, and we're going to put an alert for a couple days, identifying that the website has changed. So anytime you go to the website, it will come up with an alert with some pointed changes, so that there is another school website. It's not all one website. So it's going to have some information, and we're going to have that up by tomorrow. So when people go to it, they know that there's a change and to explore a little.
Thank you.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure.
We'll make sure we get the word out. Scott, you did a great job, and we appreciate the time.
It's the pleasure was all mine. And again, I appreciate you giving me this task. It was a labor of love, and I hope the community enjoys it.
Great. Thank you, Scott, for being here tonight and for sharing the website. I'll be sure to log on and click the feedback button.
Certainly my pleasure.
I think now, keep us moving along, we're going to go ahead and move to the proposed budget presentation for the 2021-2022 school year. So I'm going to turn this over, Scott. Okay, move Scott back to the audience. And Carl, I'm going to turn this over to you and Joe for our second budget presentation.
Sure, Sarah, thank you. And thank you for your attention. I know there were a lot of presentations here, and this is our third and final one for the evening. So Dusty, if I could ask you, there you go, Dusty. You're a step ahead of me, as usual. Okay, so this presentation has been updated. We received some new information, some financial information, and based on some feedback, we're going to move fairly quickly through the information that is the same as our presentation 2 weeks ago. But I will stop and emphasize a few key points and spend a bit more time. And then Joe will take over for the financial piece, and he will emphasize some changes in the financial side of the budget. So to begin with, the objectives remain the same. We worked with our finance committee. Thank you to our 3 board members who served and gave a lot of valuable input to this budget process. We certainly had a commitment to staying within the allowable tax levy. We'll get into that in more detail later. We wanted, one major goal is that we wanted our budget lines to be based on actual spending. Joe did a great job. He came in February and did a very thorough analysis of our past spending and created a line-by-line budget. And our projections for next year are based on what we actually spend. We did not just take the easy road and roll over the budget. We always would like to maintain 4% unappropriated. Manage our debt service. We do have, we will be taking on new debt for the upcoming capital project. Also, to our resources to support the goals and initiatives. You heard about the anti-racism and equity task force this evening, but we are also working on a coherence plan, a comprehensive plan. So we want to make sure we have the right model in place to move Garrison forward. And then PD to support all of our strategic plans and the coherence plan goals. Dusty, next.
Okay, guys, it looks like, is everyone else having trouble hearing Carl? I think we've lost Carl. He cut out a bit there.
I just messaged him as well, Sarah.
Okay.
Mhm.
So Joe, I don't know how you feel about jumping in here with the vision of the graduate. We can also wait for Carl to come back, but
We'll give him a minute. If not, I can kind of pick it up from here.
okay. Thank you. Sorry about that, folks. I know some of us are really having some internet connections tonight, and that is the sad reality of Zoom sometimes. But we will give Carl a minute before he comes back with the vision of the graduate. Dusty, did you hear back from him?
No, I'm sure he's feverishly trying to get back on.
Are we sharing his screen or are we sharing yours, Dusty?
We're all co-hosts, so.
Here's Carl. We've got him.
Okay,
Great.
okay, good.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm back and I think I'm going to be okay. I apologize for that.
No
Dusty-
worries. We're all having a little bit of internet issues this evening. No problem.
All right, that's a new, Dusty, am I clear?
Yes, you're good.
We're good. Okay, so this you've seen before. In fact, this is out. It's a draft still. We're eliciting feedback from the community on the vision of a graduate, but these are the dispositions and the skills that we are hoping every Guff's 8th grader will leave our school district with. More specific strategic plans will be developed around these 6 priority areas. Dusty, next. The enrollment has not changed since last time. We're looking at one section of K1, 2, and grade 3. And then we are moving to 2 sections of grade 4 and 5. They are departmental for a few subjects. Dusty, next. The middle school remains in 2 sections for each grade level. You see very desirable class sizes, 14 and 15. So the staffing, I'll spend a little bit more time here. In this budget, I am proposing to the Board of Education and to include 1 full-time environmental education science teacher. We do have 1 course at the middle school that we would like an additional science teacher to take over. It's in 6th grade. To work together as a partner, as a department colleague with Naomi Cook. But we also would like that person, the plan is to have that person work K through 8 to make sure we have a curriculum in place for environmental education that is aligned at every grade level. We envision this person not pulling students out of the classroom, but collaborating with the classroom teachers. We see environmental education as an area that really supports everything that we've been discussing, I must say with the coherence planning team, as well as the anti-racism and equity team, I think the work we can do in this area will support our goals really across the board. And the teachers, I've spoken to many, they are very excited about this, to have, a person with high expertise that would be a valuable resource to them. And then the vision is to have them integrate environmental education into other subject areas. So we expect the children to be outdoors as much as possible and learning in a very authentic way, take advantage of the wonderful resources that we have. But then also in areas like history and ELA, of course, science, we see this being integrated across curricular areas. The next addition would be one full-time director of technology and instructional support. This is an administration position. We have a lot of requirements with technology. In fact, in our audit that was performed by O'Connor Davies, they talked about best practices for cybersecurity. Things have changed a lot in that area, and we need to do more with staff development and with our security system. We have a lot of sensitive data, not only student data, but of course, employee information. So this person would take the lead in that area, but also instructional technology. We see this person supporting instructional technology and not just for having children on screens. That's not the objective here, but to really leverage technology to transform education, to enhance education. I think we've learned a lot of lessons this year with our remote learning. And we are nothing will replace in-person teaching, but I think we've learned some lessons about technology and have some ideas about how we would utilize that in the classroom to really transform the learning experience. But then the second part of the position would be providing instructional support. And in a small school like Garrison, to move forward with curriculum initiatives, in some ways is more difficult than a larger school. And the reason for that is we have, in many cases, one teacher per grade level. At the middle school level, we have only one subject area teacher, one science, one history teacher, one social studies teacher, one ELA teacher. And they are excellent, but they don't have department colleagues to collaborate with. They do collaborate very much with our special education staff and our support staff, but they don't have a content area colleague. So everything does fall on one teacher. And to move forward with the many initiatives that we've been planning, I think more instructional support, in addition to Allison Emig, who as principal is the instructional leader, but to have a second person who could take the lead with specific subject areas. One thought that we have at this point, depending on the person's expertise, would be, for example, the area of science. We're also looking at adding STEAM electives in addition to our general science classes. This person could be very important in developing that program and overseeing it. Also with our mathematics program, we are right now piloting, we're looking at 3 different math programs, and we hope to make a recommendation to the board soon. But looking at that technology piece, the instructional technology piece, evaluating it is important. So that's a bit more information than I provided last time, because we're really starting to think through the roles and the responsibilities. And I do strongly recommend that the board considers this position, or both of those positions that I just described. Now, the third bullet is the district treasurer. The board will recall this was a new position. It did emerge from the audit as well. The auditors did talk about best practices with separation of responsibility in our business office. We always had 2 positions, but one of them, we did change the title to district treasurer. There is a bit of a budget impact, but the person in the role has been doing exceptionally well. and really rounds out our business office staff. There's Joe Jimick as our school business administrator. We have one payroll person and one treasurer. So it's still a 3-person team, but the expertise that comes with this title definitely has been an enhancement and an improvement. So we certainly recommend continuing that. And finally, to offset some of this cost, because we always have to be mindful, we are able to reduce a teacher on special assignment who was handling some of the technician needs. A lot of those responsibilities have been turned over to our outside company that provides technical support, and that is Edutech. So we think we can reduce this position. There is a savings there. And then also, after careful analysis, we believe we can support the entire program with 3 less aides. There are currently 8. We are recommending a reduction of 3 going into next school year, but that will still provide all the special education support that we anticipate, as well as the primary grade support. There will still be aides in those grades and with those particular students. Dusty, next. So this is what I just explained, the staffing, which is really about 75% of our budget, and it just kind of breaks it out in a different way, or displays it in a different way, I should say. You see, we're overall adding 1 teacher position. Line 2 shows the reduction of 3 aides. There were 9 budgeted, but we only had 8 going into this school year, and we do think next school year 5 will be sufficient. The administrative positions, there is 1 increase. That is the Director of Technology and Instructional Support. But then you see a reduction of the TOSA position, or Teacher on Special Assignment. The clerical represents a 0.5 increase. We did increase the principal's office secretary, who was one of the 2 secretaries was part-time. We're recommending full, and that has been in place for about half of this school year. And facilities and operations, we're recommending just keeping that the same as it has been. And our facilities people not only do their cleaning, but of course they also occasionally will drive buses for us as needed. Dusty, next. Other highlights, just to summarize, I mentioned this earlier, we are in the process of adopting a K-8 mathematics program, completely aligned with the next gen standards. This is a comprehensive program. There is 1 lead candidate, but we will circle back to the board when this review is completed. The teachers are working with the materials. There's manipulatives, there's instructional technology, there are all the books and materials that are needed they're all 3 are comprehensive programs, but the 1 lead candidate I think will serve our needs really well, and that is budgeted for. Next, continue working with our balanced literacy consultants to align K-8 ELA with the next gen standards. We've worked with 2 consultants who are experts in balanced literacy. They have great relationships with staff members. They've already done a lot of work on including more diverse literature. I think there's some more work to do there, but I must say right now our classrooms contain very diverse literature, and we're going to continue those efforts, but also align with the next gen standards. Also, just to emphasize again, a K-8 environmental education program. Really the key there is that extra position. And then implement a STEAM program. Now, STEAM, the acronym stands for Science, Technology, Engineering, Art, and Math. Many people may recall it was referred to as STEM for a long time. The art has been added because there's a lot of research to support that there is creativity that really improves people's performance in all of these areas. There's a creative side that of your brain that plays a role in science and technology and engineering and math. In the past, we thought that was all just logic, but we know more about how the brain works, and creativity is important. So we're excited about this. Right now, there's a study hall in our middle school, and we want to replace that with an exciting hands-on project-based STEAM course. What I added at the bottom was, just some topics that we are looking at: engineering, robotics, coding, digital ethics. Kids will not be given homework. It's not going to be rote memory. It'll be solving real world problems, hands-on learning, and I think it'll be very exciting. We're currently looking at a few different models in some high-performing middle schools. We're also looking at the STEM Alliance, which is an organization that has a lot of great programs. So this needs some more development, but we would like this to remain in the budget, and I think it'll be an exciting addition to our middle school curriculum. Dusty, the next one. Also highlights comprehensive developmental school guidance instruction in grades K through 5. So our support staff does an excellent job supporting our children. But what we'd like to see next year is them actually going into classrooms and teaching. Now in the past, our guidance counselor has been assigned a health course. And right now we are looking at having Mr. Beckley take over those health courses. We believe we can make that work within the schedule. That will free up Krista DiDiego, our guidance counselor, and along with Jessica Van Decker, they will be delivering instruction in the classrooms. This budget will support that. Also, our SEL program, the Yale Ruler program, which stands for Recognizing, Understanding, Labeling, Expressing, and Regulating Your Emotions. The head of this, or the person who is in charge of the program up at Yale, is Mark Brackett. He developed the program, very well-known psychologist, leading expert in this field. The program is based on his research and his work. It's in, I think, over 2,000 schools across the country, and the research really supports it. We have a team training with Mrs. Emig as we speak. I believe over the next several weeks, they're completing some training, and next year we will go full steam ahead with this program. DBT has been in place. It started in our special education department, but we'd like to expand it. We see our gen ed students really receiving a lot of benefit from that. We do have a consultant who works with our faculty. We'd like to see that stay in the budget. And then this also includes funding for district-wide equity initiatives. April rolled out all of those plans, an audit, consultation, PD, and curriculum. And as I said earlier, the money comes from different places. So, there is $8,000 for consultation and audit, but there also are separate lines for PD and curriculum. And certainly every decision we make, we will be looking at through an equity lens. Dusty, next. Okay, so we're at the financial piece. Joe, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you, Carl. As Carl had alluded to earlier, we're not going to spend a lot of time on some of the slides that there aren't significant changes. So that the tax cap we're familiar with. We'll go to the next slide. And the allowable growth factor is 1.23%. Next slide. The tax base growth factor is the property tax growth as far as the growth in the value of the properties, and that's 0.4%. Next slide. So our maximum allowable levy is 2.46%. Next. And this is the formula. The formula has those two growth factors as well as changes in the amount of the district contribution that is not covered by building aid for the capital improvements. So primarily debt service and payments towards capital. As you can see that there is an adjustment from that, from 526,000 in the current year to 608 in the following year, yielding a tax levy increase of 2.46%. Next slide. So this is a slight difference from the previous version of the budget. It's 11,706,000. I believe the last time it was closer to 700,000, 11,700,000. There's just some slight overall changes, but there are some big changes within the instructional budget that we'll get into in a minute. Next slide. So this is the revenue budget. So that what we have to do is balance the revenues that are going to be required in order to fund the expenditures. And you can see that the total revenue matches the expenditure amounts. The changes, we have 916,000 designated for appropriated fund balance. It's a slight $6,000 increase from the prior estimate. And the rest of these, while you didn't see them the last time, there isn't any changes in them, with the exception of state aid. So the state aid, we'll talk a little bit more about it when we get a little bit further in, but we are estimating that based upon the proposal from the Senate and the Assembly, it is looking like the freezing of BOCES aid is probably not going to happen. So that's good. So we are budgeting to see increases in our BOCES aid. Our aid percentage is around 36%. So with a dollar spent at BOCES the next year, if it's eligible for aid, you get 36 cents back as a refund on your prior year's expense. So we are budgeting for increases here, and a lot of it is due to the aid that is generated from the expense of the iTutor program that we had to put in place this year in order to do the distance learning. That's a significant expense, and because it's a significant expense, that is eligible for aid, and that is the majority of the increase that you see in the state aid number. Next slide, please. So BOCES aid on iTutor will get that. We're saying that the other formula aids will be at or above executive proposal amounts. I think based upon how things are progressing in terms of a political arena in Albany, I think that the legislative amounts, the legislative proposals it's going to be very close to their proposals as opposed to the governor's proposal. And that's good for the school districts. So as we said, for BOCES, we're going to expect the refund of the prior years to be at or above the projected amounts, which are higher than what we have budgeted. Next slide. Okay, so this is a big change from what we had talked about in our previous estimate. We were contacted by the Haldane School District. The superintendent there contacted us and talked about how they need to increase the tuition that they're charging for high school. The current amount is $13,980. There is something that's available to districts in order as a gauge on what to charge, and it's called the Seneca Falls rate. The Seneca Falls rate is a rate that's established by the state for each individual school district. Essentially, when we file our state aid claims in September, that information is used to determine how much on a per pupil basis that is the state considers appropriate to charge for tuition. The district has had a contract with the Haldane School District for a number of years. that used a different formula than the Seneca Falls formula and rate. And it is, as of late, it has been significantly under that rate. If you look at the Seneca Falls rate currently for the Haldane School District, it would be closer to 18,500. That would be the rate based upon. Typically what happens is there's an estimated rate that's available for the current year, and then the following year they make that rate, in December they say what the rate from the prior year actually will be, and there's an adjustment that you may get a bill or a refund from whoever you're paying the tuition to. So Haldane wants to get up to the Seneca Falls formula, and they understand that that's a big increase in the rate. So they're splitting it up into 2 years. That represents a 16% increase to go from the 13,980 to the 16,264 for the regular ed student. And then we anticipate that they're going to go to the Seneca Falls rate in the year prior, the subsequent year, and it raised the tuition by again 14% more, and that would get them to the Seneca Falls rate. So that is a big change. And if you notice, we didn't see a big change in the expenditures, and we'll talk about why that is in the next slide. So the tuition versus actual, there's a slight adjustment here. You can see we're budgeting very close to actual. That number there represents basically just 2 additional regular education students that our budget is extra, so it's budgeted very close to actual. Next slide. So this allows for 1 unanticipated high needs special education student to come to the district without going over budget, and then 2 unanticipated high school regular ed students to come and not go over budget. But any additional students beyond these isn't included. Next slide. Apologize for the top of that. So the environmental education position was added to the budget. And we're still having, as a part of this budget, increases due to cleaning and the fact that our operations folks are focused on cleaning. And then that increases the amount of transportation expenses. And we also have an increase in special education transportation expenses for students that were added mid-year. We have increase in debt service to cover the capital project. And you can see the increase in high school tuition, 16%, nets out a $41,000 increase here. But essentially we were able to offset those increases by reducing the amount of additional unanticipated placements in the special education line of the tuition part of the budget. So there were budgeted more placeholders for special education, but in order to be able to balance the budget, we had to put those placeholders towards the tuition increase that Haldane is proposing to us that we will need to expect for next year. Next slide. So we decreased the placements in the special education budget. So basically there were additional placements or placeholders in there to allow for additional unanticipated special education students. We really couldn't do that with the tuition increase, so that's why we decreased that budget line. And then we are decreasing the health insurance budget to recognize the receipt of the employee contributions in the expenditure line, and that shows a decrease in health insurance expense. In the past, we have been recording that expense reduction, but not budgeting for it, but we are budgeting for it this year. And then decreasing the 3 full-time aide positions with the associated benefits yields 162,000 in savings. So where we are, 11,706,000. The revenue without the appropriated fund balance is 10,790,000. So that we would need 916,000 of appropriated fund balance to close that gap. This is just a look at the history of the tax levy, and this is the same as the last time we looked at it. Next slide. And we made a adjustment to the amount of fund balance change here. So there's a slight increase in the amount of general fund balance that we think will be used to support the budget. Next slide. And so we have a look at the average assessment for the towns. And if we look at an average home of 325,000, the assessment is $22.04 per thousand of assessed value. And these numbers are the same as they were the last time. So we still don't know the legislative amounts. Hopefully we'll know that by the end of March. Will BOCES aid be frozen? Probably not. We are budgeting for the pandemic expenses, basically to keep continuing. And if they don't, or in the middle of the year things improve and we can go back to normal, we could have our transportation and cleaning staff focused more on transportation than they are currently. Things could improve. But we are budgeting as if the requirements and the things that we have to do for COVID will go for the next full year, just in case. Next. So one of the things that we also updated here is for those residents and members of the community that wanted to find out about this budget, we also have another opportunity for them to do that. If they're not a night person and they need a morning event, we have an event next Tuesday on March 23rd at 10 a.m. Where we'll do another Zoom meeting to review this same information that we're reviewing today. And the rest of the calendar is the same.
Thank you, Joe. And Carl, that was great. That brings us to the end of it. Is that correct, Joe?
Yes.
Oh, no.
Come out and vote.
It's an important one. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off before the important vote slide. All right, guys. I want to, real quickly, because I just want to say that we're going to take board questions first, and then we will be opening it up in the chat to comments on the budget presentation only. All other comments I would ask that the public hold until public comment. And I also just want to say I've had a few notes today regarding the shift in the Haldane tuition amounts. I know Haldane announced this, or that they were discussing this at their board meeting last night. And I want to assure everyone that not only does Carl maintain a wonderful relationship with Dr. Benante at Haldane, they've been very open with us throughout this process. They did not surprise us, and we greatly appreciate our relationship with them. So for anyone who reached out to me today to let me know, please know that Haldane has been working, and for the board to know, Haldane's been working with us and working working especially through Carl and Joe on this. Okay, so board, do we have any questions? David?
Quickly, how does the Haldane tuition compare to O'Neill's?
So Haldane's tuition is currently significantly lower than O'Neill's. So we are projecting for next year that we are budgeting for 19,000 for O'Neill. We won't likely pay that amount. It'll probably be closer to 18,000, but it is a significant difference between the two schools. And they are using the Seneca Falls formula in O'Neill, which means that there is a mid-year adjustment in the following year for the tuition that you pay for in the year that you're in currently. So if the final rate changes to a significant amount different from what they are currently, there'll be an adjustment that we'll have to pay next spring for tuition that we paid this year.
Thank you, Joe. Madeline?
Thank you, Joe and Carl, for answering all of our questions and for the updated presentation. I do have a question about iTutor next year. So it's good news that we'll receive some aid from BOCES from the iTutor cost for this year. Is it in the budget, or can you talk a little bit more about where is iTutor today and where do we see it in September?
So iTutor is not currently in the budget for next year. We are not planning for iTutor to continue in the fall. We think that we have the ability to have all the students back in person in the fall, and it's not currently being budgeted for next year. It costs at the current rate, it costs about $41,000 a month to maintain iTutor, and we don't think that we can or we need to maintain the iTutor program for next year.
Thank you.
And Carl, to follow up on that, we don't have a requirement that we know of by the state to offer remote learning going into next year. Is that correct?
That's correct. We don't expect a requirement. I mean, we're all hopeful that with the vaccination rollout, things will be much more under control next year.
Thank you. James, did you have a question?
Yeah, so how many students are planning on going to Haldane next year that have indicated that they're going to Haldane next year? And so what is the real dollar shift?
Well, there are only 3 8th graders that have committed to going to Haldane, but we still have a lot of current 9th, 10th, and 11th graders there. So you know, we are still seeing a significant increase year over year on a per pupil basis, even though the incoming 8th graders, there's not as many that have pledged. Most of the 8th graders pledged to go to O'Neill.
Okay. So the cost increases because of our current enrollment there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the cost increase as well. There's a couple components. Obviously, if more of the 8th graders chose to go to Haldane, it wouldn't increase as much because of the difference in rate. So there's that, as well as the increase on all the current students of Haldane.
So is it fair to say that this is I guess a 2-time bump? Is that the deal?
Yes. Yeah. So we're going to have a very similar increase to the rate in the following year, and then they're going to be basically at the Seneca Falls rate. So there wouldn't be anywhere near an increase in rate for any years following. And the other thing that is related that we still need to discuss is the formula and how they deal with special education tuition, but that is something that will work out, and we're prepared for as far as appropriate conservative budgeting practices for the growth in those costs.
So this is like a good news, bad news presentation, right? So we got a little bad news on the financial front. We got some good news on the financial front.
Yeah. So on the aid picture, things are looking good. The increase to the tuition rate makes it so that we have to cut very close to where we think the actual enrollments are going to be. So it's going to be very. We think that the expenditures that we have in tuition are going to match very closely to what we actually are going to spend. We don't have as much comfort as we had in the past with the ability to leave a lot of money on the table there, but there just wasn't any more to go around.
Joe, I have a follow-up to James's question. You have gone back, I believe, if I recall from the the finance committee meetings, and looked at how many students have moved into district mid-year over the past 6 years or so, to see if we've ever had an increase that would justify requiring more than a cost of 2 students, say. Is that correct?
Yeah, we have looked at the budgeted enrollment for students and the budget to actual, and we don't see mid-year students really appearing very often at all. And the other thing that we did was I took the last year's list of all the private school enrollments and contacted the families of the current 8th graders to see what their plans were. So, and I don't, there may be one student out of the handful of 8th graders that might be going to a public school. So, so we don't anticipate that there's really students out there that are just going to show up.
Thank you.
Sarah, I would just add, Joe and we've had extensive conversation because, in coming to the board with a recommendation of 2 additional high school placements in the budget and 1 additional special education placement, we really base that on the analysis, but I think it's important to emphasize it's possible, but we don't think it's probable. So, and that's based on the analysis, but the board needs to know that there's not, and I don't want to be repetitive here, but there's very little margin. If 4 high school students show up, well, then we're 2 above. If 3 special education students move into Garrison that need out of district placements, see, of course, that's not likely. We do have very solid, we have a good continuum of services within our school. And then that would not be a big budget driver. So we're both very comfortable. We gave it a lot of consideration. We are comfortable with the amount of extra contingency that we're recommending.
Thank you. And I would also like to emphasize that Haldane had the right to go up to the full Seneca Falls for next year and chose not to after consultation and decided to increase over 2 years to help us adjust, which I personally am grateful for.
Yeah, it is very helpful that they allowed that for us.
Do I have any other questions from board members regarding the budget? Anything else? Okay. If I have any community, Dusty.
Sarah, I'm so sorry to interject. I just have a clarifying question as to our next budget presentation. I noticed on the slide we had March 23rd, Tuesday. the information we have posted on the website says March 22nd. So I just want to clarify that. And if I need to make any changes to that, so we have accurate information.
Dusty, why don't we stick with what's posted on the website? I'm
Okay.
looking our audience is not that extensive tonight.
Okay.
And that is actually my fault. There was a typo, but we originally said Monday, and we'll get a reminder Blackboard out to everyone tomorrow, and we'll adjust this presentation as well before we post it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so I would like to invite anyone in the public who has questions or comments on the budget to enter them into the chat now. I will read them out. Again, it's just on the budget presentation at this point, please. Okay, and while we do that, I don't have anything to fill this time at this moment. Sorry about that, guys. Okay, we did have, all right, Chip Rowe would like to clarify the presentation will be Monday or Tuesday. It will be on Monday at 10 a.m., correct? Monday at 10 a.m. via Zoom, and the link will be on the website. Okay. All right, guys. Again, if you have any questions at the budget, you can always reach out, and we will again have public comment later on. But I'm going to go ahead and keep us moving along then. The next up, we have another discussion item, which is a discussion of iTutor remote learning. We did cover this briefly, but I'm going to go ahead and hand this over to Carl.
Sure. Just to give an update, we made the decision to go with iTutor back in August. And looking back, I do think it was still a very good decision. It was expensive, yes. We did start the school year with roughly 50 children on grades K through 8. We did have a teacher at every grade level. That over time, that number dropped. I think as people became more comfortable with the protocol and the plans we had in place, and as we learned more about the virus, we learned more about it being airborne versus on surfaces, and then we started to see the data from schools that transmission in schools was relatively low. So as we speak right now, we are down to 17 children remaining in the iTutor program. As Joe said earlier, it is approximately $40,000 per month. That could go lower if some of those children decide to return to in-person. And in looking back, I do believe, one added benefit is that our in-person teaching, I believe, is much more effective because, most other districts have teachers teaching on cameras. And if you're in person teaching to a camera and also trying to effectively teach children who are at home, that's an incredible challenge for a teacher. And I think the in-person students do lose something, in that model. So, all in all, I do think the program has enabled us to have a more effective in-person. And then the children, of course, who chose to, the families who chose to have their children remote, they also got undivided attention as well through the iTutor staff. So it seemed to work. Nothing is perfect in this environment. But Sarah, just to reiterate what we said earlier, we don't expect, it's not in the budget, of course, and we don't expect it to be a requirement next year. So if families are tuning into this, I think they should plan. To return in person if that's what they choose to do, or of course there's always an option of independent homeschooling. The homeschooling is an option, and anyone that's interested certainly can reach out and I could walk them through that.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any questions for Carl regarding iTutor this evening? Okay.
I have a question about enrollment, and when was the last time we sent out a survey to indicate parents' intentions to remain? with iTutor, remain remote, fully remote? And do we foresee that continuing through the, I guess, the third, then the fourth quarter?
James, although we haven't done a survey, I will say our counselors and our principal are in touch with those families and have a pretty good sense. Right now, I believe you may get a handful of children returning between now and the spring, which is right around the corner. And I do also believe, though, out of the 17, I would say at least a dozen, maybe a few more, are for the most part committed to staying with iTutor through June.
Thank you. Do we have other questions? Okay, thank you for the update on iTutor. It is an expense, and I appreciate hearing more about it. Next up, we have board member training feedback. This is something we're going to continue to add as board members go to different trainings that are offered through either the Westchester Putnam School Board Association or NYSBA, the New York State School Board Association. We're trying to formalize this. I would ask board members, if you wish to attend training, to please look to the free options for the remainder of this year. If you want to spend money, please let us know, but hopefully we can save that money. There are a lot of free, wonderful options though. So Jocelyn and I attended the first part of the Education Law Forum and Negotiations Workshop. The second part, the Negotiations Workshop, will take place tomorrow. Jocelyn, did you have any thoughts or questions or comments you wish to share about the first day of education law?
Thank you. Do you want to share first? You always let others go. What were your thoughts?
Okay, sure. I had just one really big takeaway from it, and it was interesting because it covered COVID and how districts are handling that in relation to the law. And then the changes to Title IX I thought was really interesting, especially as we're talking a lot about equity and what does that mean in districts. So one of my takeaways from that conversation was, do we have enough professional development time set aside for the increasing number, or maybe just what I view as an increasing number of state requirements for professional development? And there is now a requirement, I believe, under Title IX for staff to have professional development during the superintendent days. So that was one of my takeaways. There was also a really interesting section on all the different case laws that lead to First Amendment rights for students. That's just fascinating. Justin, I was thinking it would be interesting to share the handout with the whole board.
Well, that was one of the things I was going to suggest is, for this one was a paid one. And so the district did put in money. I think we should definitely share all those handouts with everybody. I mean, and always maybe should, right? And for anyone who wants to maybe have a shared drive or someone can email them out to everybody. But that First Amendment law one was really interesting. And I'm a non-lawyer and I still found it interesting. And I would agree, there's a lot of thoughts on professional development as well, like with respect to Title IX. I don't think I'm going to get as much out of negotiations. I think that one's going to go like over my head. But I will also say that I did attend a free NYSBA webinar today as well. It's not on the agenda, but I will share everything. It was called Building a Diverse Workforce. So I'll just share any materials they gave, just like we might share materials for this one, because it was a free one. So I was able to register easily.
Great. And anytime you attend one, just maybe, sorry to add to your workload, Dusty, but just shoot a note to Dusty and we'll just get it on the agenda too, to have it
Great.
noted. And Dusty, if we share the handouts with you, can you post them somewhere for the board, like maybe in a weekly update spot?
Yeah, we could do that. That might be an area on board docs where we can put training, board training information, and then we can just locate those there, and then any of you can access those right in the library.
Well, I'm sure
I think that would be helpful. I mean, I would love to share it with everybody else who didn't get to attend at noon on a Tuesday because they probably had other work to do.
Yeah, I do think it's one of the advantages actually of some of these Zoom workshops is we're able to attend and still like.
What were you doing during the Zoom workshop? Washing dishes, doing laundry? I was grading a little bit, but I did listen in.
But yeah, Carl, that would be one thing, and I can forward you the handout as well to look at what our district is doing in relation to the Title IX compliance. And I think that was it. And then there was a great discussion also about equity and how to build a more diverse workplace, especially with regards to hiring practices. One of the things I took away from that was perhaps looking at the teaching programs in our area, which I know you're doing, but not just for graduates, but maybe a student teacher as well might be of interest in that area if we're looking. So, yep, Carl.
Yeah, no, just to add to that, Dusty did reach out to all the local teaching programs for us this year, initially, encouraging young people to, come to us and consider substitute teaching, because we did need that. But now the next round, we will be reaching back to them saying that, we would be open to talking about student teaching. Allison Emig and I just had a conversation about that. So I think it's a nice opportunity also to kind of give back to the profession and have some young people come in and learn from some of the veterans in our school. I think it could be a win-win.
Great. Justin, do you have anything else? I think that's all my notes from that fun project. Okay. It did make me want to be an education lawyer. Every time I go to one of those, I wonder how I ended up not being an education lawyer. It looks like so much fun. Instead, I'm here with all of you. All right. So I think that's it for our board communications. We get to move on to item 4 on the agenda. We're going to move hopefully a little bit faster. So we're now on to president's remarks. And I do have a couple tonight. First, I want to state that today marks our 100th day of in-person learning. We have had students in the building at some grade level for 100 days this year, which is pretty amazing when you consider that some districts are just getting students back in the building for the first time right now. This time last year, we were not in person. So I'm getting a little choked up even just thinking about it, but it's not the board that keeps the school open. We have a lot of fun talking about budgets and policies, but it is our staff, it is our teachers, and it is our administration that keeps our school open. So thank you. Okay. I also have some notes here that we've had 16 days of remote synchronous learning, 1 closure for remote learning, and 4 snow days. So let's hope we don't have any more snow, because we don't have any more snow days. The next thing I wanted to bring up, Hudson Valley Shakespeare, which I know you may all be aware, is looking to relocate to Garrison from their home at Boscobel. They reached out to me and invited some representatives of our board to attend a walkthrough of the new space along with Carl and Allison this coming Tuesday from 1 to 3 p.m. And I wanted to extend the invitation here publicly to any of the other board members who might be interested in attending that. I know 1 to 3.
You said Tuesday at 1:30?
Tuesday, 1 to 3 p.m. And
1 to 3.
if the time doesn't work for anyone, I can try and adjust it. We can't have a quorum, so I'm looking for 2 of you if you want to come. But if we feel really passionate, Madeline, you want to come? Okay. I see Madeline. James, you're unmuted. Did you want to attend?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Guys,
What day? That's Tuesday?
that's a Tuesday.
All right.
And if others want to attend at another time, let me know and we'll set up another one. I
I
just
think
can't
we're
remember.
more than happy to take you through anytime, anywhere,
Mhm. And just for a little bit of background, this really came up. I know there's been other public walkthroughs for this, but initially when they were doing some of their informationals, they were talking about how do we link curriculum to the school? Is there ways to work together, seeing as we'll be so close? And when they reached out, I thought, well, as much as I love talking about curriculum, we really need to have our heads of curriculum, superintendent and principal on that. So we'll bring them along for the discussion and to see the space. So, okay, Madeline and James, I will follow up with you. And again, anyone else reach out. Jocelyn?
I'll just say that I took one of the walkthroughs and it sounded like they're very eager to make the space open and welcoming and inclusive and available to our students, but also, you know, broader populations. So I just think I'm glad that there's a contingency going to take a look.
Right.
Great.
The next thing I have is someone from NISBA reached out. It's someone I'd spoken to in the very beginning of the year. He's one of their member relations that was doing a check-in and invited me to a focus group Wednesday at 3. I am not able to attend Wednesday at 3. It is via Zoom. It is just, I believe, 5 or 6 representatives from different districts. And I asked if we could send another representative. I was thinking of Madeline if she was free. I don't want to take every afternoon of yours, but you are a NISBA rep. But I'd love to have a representative from our district attend if possible and share our thoughts on what's happening. And that's next Wednesday at 3, Madeline, if you're interested.
I'm available.
Okay, I'll send you the information and connect you. And I do appreciate the School Board Association thinking of us. And the last little note I have here, we had talked about doing a joint board training with Haldane. Now that we have approved the strategic plan, I think I'd like to follow up with them, if that's all right with everybody, and start talking about possible dates over the summer, what they're thinking, what they're budgeting, things like that. I'm sure we'll have to have another discussion later on once we have more details. Sound good, everyone? All right, that's all I've got. Carl, you're up.
Okay, I will be brief. I want to start by just saying thank you. We pulled together the reopening school task force yesterday, and I thank all those members for coming together. We're thinking about at this point opening up some of the restrictions that we put in place back in September. You know, based on the new science and the new research. The admin team, with consultation with, of course, Nurse Melissa, we're thinking about at the middle school allowing our students to move from class to class as they did in years past, which is typical for, of course, middle school, and also having lockers, which may not seem like a big privilege, but for middle school students, having your own locker is a big deal. And it's a privilege. So we're hoping to have the students, feel a little bit more normalcy in the last quarter of the school year, and we're working hard to make that happen. The input was very valuable from parents and our teachers. It seems like we have consensus for this, and we believe we can do it safely. Also educationally, for a teacher to travel room to room, and Allison, Sarah, excuse me, earlier you complimented the people who made this 100 days possible, but really the staff and the teachers, they've done an amazing job. And I look at Naomi Cook, to move a science lab setup from room to room every period is a real challenging thing to do. So under this new model, she will be able to set up in the science lab. The children will come to her. And Allison and Nurse Melissa have laid out a plan to do that safely. So we're excited. Look for communication from Allison and Meg about this, and it should go into effect right after the spring break. Secondly, I'd like to give a shout out once again to Ray O'Rourke. Ray, back in January, you may recall, went up to the redoubt and did work single-handedly. It was probably one of the coldest days of the year. That day he worked inside the redoubt. It was completely overgrown. You almost could not really recognize it for what it was and the historical value. He went up there again this week and finished the walls and the exterior of the redoubt, just clearing out all that brush. So it now can be used and enjoyed by children, and we intend to do that this spring. And again, I just appreciate he put in 2 full days, an enormous amount of work. So thank you, Ray. Also, I just want to announce that Section 1 has approved modified sports for the spring. The official start date is April 26th. Patrick Beckley plans to run modified girls softball And in our partnership with Haldane, we will run modified boys baseball. And that is all.
Thank you, Carl. Okay, up next we have financial reports. First we have, oh wait, Fred, did anyone have questions for Carl? I know it's getting a little late. I'm not so great after 9, guys. All right, I don't see any questions. Okay, so now we're going to go on to financial reports. Claims audit report. I'm going to read the recommended action. Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Garrison Union Free School District hereby accepts the claims audit report for December 2020, January 2021, and February 2021 as presented. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Seconded.
Okay, we're good there. Do I have any questions on the claims audit reports as presented? Okay,
Who's
I
doing-
actually had,
Who's
what?
doing our claims audits?
Her name is Tony Ann
Okay,
Carlson.
okay.
Correct.
She was hired by the audit committee.
I just sort of forgot. I remember that we had a new person, that's all.
I believe she started with us November 1st. I do have one question. In one of her reports, she has asked for each department to establish a budget manager, and that the budget manager will be granted limited Envision access. Joe, is that in place now?
And that is not in place now, but it is something that we're looking to do. We're also looking to computerize our requisition process so that that the managers can see where they currently are with their budget and their expenditures, and then they will know whether or not they have money available to put towards another expenditure. So yes, this is something that we do. I agree with the recommendation, and we will work to implement that.
Great, thank you, Joe. Okay, do I have any other questions on claims auditing? Okay, Dusty, can we move to a roll call vote, please?
Jocelyn Apicello,
Aye.
David Gelber,
Aye.
James Hoke,
Aye.
Madeline Julian,
Aye.
Matthew Spicer,
Aye.
and Sarah Tormy.
Aye. Next up, we have the treasurer's report. I'm going to read the recommended action. Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Garrison Union Free School District hereby accepts the treasurer's report for January 2021 and February 2021 as presented. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Seconded.
Okay. Do I have any questions on the treasurer's report? Okay, great. Can we move to a roll call vote, please?
Jocelyn Apicello,
Aye.
David Gelber,
Aye.
James Hoke,
Aye.
Madeline Julian,
Aye.
Matthew Spicer,
Aye.
Sarah Tormy.
Next up, we have committee reports. The first up is the Facilities Committee report from Matt. There you go, Matt.
We had a really productive meeting last week in which we talked about how best to maintain our safety protocols and guidelines from this year as we embark upon construction next year, to the degree that that's still necessary. We all hope it won't be, of course. That was great. I want to thank everyone involved and thank Carl for responding to concerns about that and really going step by step through the process to really make sure that our students will be as safe next year as they have been this year, in keeping with Sarah's comment about maintaining in-person learning. Obviously, we all hope that'll become moot, but in the meantime, we're planning in case it's not. We all started another conversation about making the best use of our time this summer. And that's a conversation that is ongoing with a priority on getting moving on the project as efficiently as possible. Everyone involved is very committed to that, but working within the confines and constraints, and there's lots of moving parts and factors. So we're going to keep moving that with that conversation. We have another meeting coming up tomorrow. Just want to thank everybody on the committee for putting in such good faith effort and working so collaboratively on this really exciting project. So thank you.
Great, thank you, Matt. Next, we have the policy committee report, which is from Courtney. Courtney's not with us tonight, but she did send a brief report, which I will read. Last week, the policy committee met to discuss our progress with updating the entire policy binder and submitting it back to Erie One BOCES for review. A draft of the revised code of conduct is coming to the committee in the next month, and we expect to have it ready for a first reading for the board at the May 4th meeting. Patrick Beckley, North Melissa, and Allison and Mig are all reviewing the wellness policy. We expect to have a draft of that policy ready to review shortly as well. And just so we know, tonight we'll be doing a first reading of policy 7580, equity, diversity, and inclusion, and look forward to discussing it. Okay, that's what I have from Courtney. I'm gonna keep us going here.
Can you repeat that about the code of conduct? I thought I heard something that, what was that?
Yes, a draft of the revised code of conduct is coming to the committee, the policy committee, in the next month, and we expect to have it ready for a first reading for the board at the May 4th meeting.
That's,
May 4th, you should see a draft of the code of conduct, which has taken a lot of time to
I just can't
update.
believe that got done. That's all. I thought that, I can't believe that happened. All right. All
Well,
right. Good
it's
job.
in process, so don't jinx it.
Okay. All right. I'm stunned. I'm stunned.
I will say our building principal has tackled a number of very large and intimidating projects in her brief tenure with us so far. If you recall, she joined us in November and has already tackled RTI and now Code of Conduct. So thank you, Miss Meg. Okay, I'm going to keep going here. Next, we've got accept minutes. Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Garrison Union Free School District hereby accept the minutes of the regular meeting of March 3rd, 2021 and the special meeting of March 10th, 2021 as presented. May I have a motion, please?
Don't move.
Second.
Okay, do we have any questions or comments on the minutes? Okay, great. Nessie, can we do a roll call vote, please?
Jocelyn Apicello,
Aye.
David Gelber,
Aye.
James Hope,
Aye.
Madeline Julian,
Aye.
Matthew Spicer,
Aye.
Sarah Tormey.
Aye. Next up, we have personnel items, the consent agenda. Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Garrison Union Free School District, upon the recommendation of Carl L. Albano, Superintendent, does hereby approve the items of the personnel consent agenda as presented. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Carl, do you have any comments on the consent agenda this evening?
I just want to thank Anthony Tedesco for his service to the district. He worked with our facilities department. He has twins on the way and has some family obligations. That is why he's resigning. It was with mixed feelings, but he's doing what he needs to do for his family, and we wish him well.
Thank you. Do we have any questions or comments? Okay, move to a roll call vote, please, Dusty.
Jocelyn Apicello,
Aye.
David Gelber,
Aye.
James Hoke,
Aye.
Madeline Julian, Matthew Spicer,
Aye.
Sarah Tormey.
Aye. Okay. Next up, we have old business. We begin with a second reading and approval of policy 5413, procurement uniform grant guidance for federal awards. I'm going to read the recommended action. Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Garrison Union Free School District hereby approves policy 5413, procurement uniform grant guidance for federal awards. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, thank you. Do I have any, this is a second reading of the procurement uniform grant guidance for federal awards. We heard about this last time. The draft of the policy has been posted publicly, so I will not read it. Do I have any questions or comments? Okay, I'm going to move to a roll call vote, Dusty.
Jocelyn Apicello,
Aye.
David Gelber,
Aye.
James Hoke,
Aye.
Madeline Julian,
Aye.
Matthew Spicer,
Aye.
Sarah Tormy.
Next, we have a second reading and approval of policy 7212, response to intervention, RTI process. Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Garrison Union Free School District hereby approves policy 7212, response to intervention, RTI process. May I have a motion, please?
Oh,
So moved.
second.
Thank you. Again, this policy has been posted. This is the second reading. We reviewed it last time. Do I have any questions or comments? Okay. Thank you again to Ms. Amig for all her work on this. Let's move to a roll call vote.
Jocelyn Epicello,
Aye.
David Gelber,
Aye.
James Hoke,
Aye.
Madeline Julian, Matthew Spicer,
Aye.
Sarah Tormy.
Aye. Next, we have approved revised 2021-2022 school calendar. Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Garrison Union Free School District hereby approves the 2021-2022 school calendar as amended. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Carl, do you want to comment on this?
Sure. We approved this last meeting, but since then there was one minor change that needed to be made. Juneteenth or June 19th falls on a Sunday next year, the next school year. And New York State passed a law that if it falls on a Sunday, then Monday, all public, public buildings, municipalities are closed. So we will be closing in recognition of the holiday on Monday. What we did to get our total student days, we did add one additional school day to the February break. So instead of having the day after President's Day off, now that will be a school day, and that gives us our total 181 days. So it's a minor change, but it was required. And I recommend it to the board for approval.
Thank you, Carl. Do I have any questions? Okay, I'm going to move to a roll call vote, please.
Jocelyn Epicello,
Aye.
David Gelber,
Aye.
James Hoke,
Aye.
Madeline Julian, Matthew Spicer,
Aye.
Sarah Tormy.
Aye. Okay, next up, we have new business. We're going to try and move quickly through this. Dusty gave me a new way to read this, so you're ready. Be resolved that the Board of Education of the Garrison Union Free School District approve items A, B through E as presented. May I have a motion? Did I read that right, Dusty?
Sarah, it is items A through E.
A through E, excuse me.
Mhm.
Items A through E as presented. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Okay. Carl, do you have any questions or thoughts or comments on these?
No, I know the board had this for review. There are a few business items that are fairly routine. So if you have questions, I'm sure Joe would be happy to elaborate. But if you've reviewed it and are comfortable with it, I think we can go to a vote.
Okay. Do I have any questions? Okay, let's move to a vote, please.
Jocelyn Epicello,
Aye.
David Gelber, is David still with us?
He looks frozen. Oh,
Okay.
there.
Aye.
Thank you, David. James Hoke,
Aye.
Madeline Julian,
Aye.
Matthew Spicer,
Aye.
and Sarah Tormy.
Aye. Okay, now we move on to item F on the new business, which is the first reading of policy 7580, equity, diversity, and inclusion. This is just a first reading, so there is no recommended action this evening. Do I have any questions, comments, thoughts you wish to share regarding the draft of the policy? I'm not going to read the multi-page policy. It is posted for the public and for the board.
I'd just like to quickly say, but before others have comment, that this was a draft policy provided by NISBA that, we did a little bit of tweaking to make it better for the district in policy committee, that is. And so there is kind of a movement in New York State around this policy. Other schools are looking at something very similar.
I'll add to that one of the changes that we looked at was what is the definition when we talk about the different groups do we want to make sure have equitable outcomes within our district? And how do we define equity? I actually don't have it in front of me, but Jocelyn wrote well, I don't know who originated the wording for that definition of equity, but I think it's very powerful to include that. Do I have any other, for people who aren't in policy committee, sorry, Jocelyn, do you have a comment? Do I have any other questions, comments on this policy this evening?
This all, this comes out of NISBA originally?
The original framework, yes.
So, the only recommendation is always when you're dealing with issues that might impact hiring process or procedures, is to be, aligned with state law so you don't run afoul of that. Language as such.
There is, and there was some debate within the committee, I believe, that, this doesn't really get into process or procedure. If you look at the policy, it's not talking about how we do hiring practices. It's really a little bit, that goes beyond policy. That gets into a procedural manual.
Right.
Yes, we don't want to run this will go to council next, Carl, is that correct? So we will have this run by Chris Lanchanton.
We certainly can have Chris review it when we're ready to vote on it, or prior to that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we just want to be consistent with state law, civil rights law, et cetera.
Well, yeah, and the state law trumps all policy we might make,
right.
Which hopefully should reassure some people.
But that was one of the questions that the committee kind of went back and forth on, was this policy does not address hiring, or nor does it kind of really address like the environment of the school. It's very curriculum focused, which is great. But we did go back and forth, and I was wondering if a way to kind of accommodate the fact that it doesn't address hiring and retention of employees specifically. This is so lame. It's wording, and it's like 9:30, but at least it's before 10. But I was just gonna say, like under one section it says goals, and it says to achieve educational equity, blah blah blah. The students need to find relevant connections among themselves and the subject matter and the tasks teachers ask them to perform. I'm wondering if a way to get at kind of diversity in the workforce is to add in that students should find relevant connections among themselves with the school faculty. And it might be a way to, and this is obviously going to be a lawyerly question, to bring in the idea of making sure that students also can identify and connect with the diversity based on the diversity definition as a goal for the school. It's a way to bring it in without being explicit about hiring and retention. Because it's a goal. It's literally in the goal paragraph.
Trying to get there right now, Justin. Give me a second.
It's probably something that's go back to committee to determine.
The addition of that one word would be committee.
The impact of possibly, yeah. Yeah, depends how it impacts.
I would propose adding the change to the draft for discussion with the board. We can look at it again in committee, and we can look at it with council. We do need to be careful that per the education law thing that event that we attended, that with regards to hiring, we can't discriminate in any way. And that we are
pitfall is a bit of a problem. That's all.
And likewise, there's the paragraph that starts differences still in goals, but it says differences will not just be seen as strengths, and welcome because they are what make students and families unique. And I kind of was wondering, should we bring in like our staff and our faculty and our community as language rather than just focusing on students? Anyway, it was just a way to highlight that we value differences in our community and faculty as well as our students and families. It was just two places I thought we could be a little more inclusive of our faculty and staff. Granted, I was on the committee and I did not catch this before, so I apologize for bringing it up now. But I think since it's a first reading, it's still kind of a discussion, right?
Can we add, yeah, Justin, can you add the language into the draft, or Dusty, if you could, and then we'll add it back and then we'll put it back out. And we can review it again next time.
I can definitely add that. A
Thank you.
suggested change.
Trying to scan through, sorry. There's also one small change, Dusty. It says, I'm sorry, I'm trying to figure out what page I'm on. I'm on page 4 of 5, second paragraph, and I apologize for not catching this as well. The superintendent, having yelled at my child for proper grammar, I believe we should start that sentence with a capital. It currently is a lowercase t. All right. If anyone else has any other changes, please send them to the committee prior to the second reading. Again, there has been a lot of time. You will see the same lists repeated, but I do think this addresses what when we talk about equity, we're talking about equity for all the groups and all the students in our community. Okay. That brings us to any other thoughts, comments on it before I move on, or ready to keep going? We can talk about equity all night, guys. No? Okay. Next, we're going to move on to public comment. Okay, so now is the time. If you wish to leave a comment, I would invite you to add your comment into the chat and I will read it. Public comment is intended for members of the community to speak openly and voice concerns. In accordance with policy 3220 of the Garrison Union Free School District, any person wishing to speak shall comply with all provisions of this policy. Comments about specific school personnel or individual students is a violation of board policy. Concerns regarding students or personnel should be discussed privately with the superintendent or appropriate administrator. Okay, let's see if anybody's left any wonderful comments. I don't see anything in the chat. I do see a comment in here in the Q&A from Anita Prentice. I would like to congratulate Superintendent Albano and the board on adopting the Anti-Racism and Equity Strategic Plan. This is a historic step and you are all to be commended for acting this evening to move ahead. Much admiration for everyone who worked so hard to bring this about. As a representative of the Desmond Fish Public Library, we look forward to working in partnership with the Garrison Union Free School District on achieving greater equity for all in our community. Okay. Let's see any others. All right, there we go. We are now going to move on to board member comment and other discussion. I don't even remember who's in charge of the list anymore. Is it Matt? Is it David? I gave up that.
I got fired last time. I don't.
You got fired? Okay. Let's start at the bottom then this time, because I think I started at the top last time, but again, I never remember. So I remember a lot of other things. I have no further comment this evening. Matt, do you have comment?
No, I don't. Thank you.
Okay. Courtney is not here. Madeline.
No comment, thank you.
James.
No comment.
Started at the right end of the list. David.
Yeah, I actually wanted to express my appreciation. I'm sure I'm speaking for other board members too, to Ray O'Rourke for this incredibly selfless job he did and cleaning up the redoubt area. And James, I wanted to tell you that Ray confided in me that he saw this kind of as the beginning of a tradition of what retired school board presidents would do in their retirement. And so, I'll be very interested in seeing.
If that is the case, I nominate David Gelber as the next president of the Garrison School Board.
I'm
You
sorry.
gotta look out for it.
See if you can clear that bar, James.
Joking aside, Ray did a heck of a job. It was pretty of a run up there, and what he was pulling out was not easy work there. So
Does that mean I'm stuck in this job forever if I don't like to pull weeds? Just curious. All right, thank you, David. Jocelyn.
No comment, thanks.
Okay. We do not have any reason to enter executive session this evening. Is that correct? Okay. Save that for another night so we don't run past our 10 p.m. deadline and turn into pumpkins. All right, we're going to move on to adjournment. Okay. Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Garrison Union Free School District hereby adjourns the regular meeting of March 17th, 2021. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Roll call vote, please, Dusty?
Jocelyn Apicello,
Aye.
David Gelber,
Aye.
James Hoke,
aye.
Madeline Julian,
Aye.
Matthew Spicer,
Aye.
Sarah Tormey.
Aye. All right, thank you all. I will see you all again tomorrow evening, right, Dusty?
Yeah.
7 o'clock?
Yeah.
Yay. Won't this be fun? Joe, thank you again. Thank you, Carl. I'll see you tomorrow.
Good
Bye.
night, everybody.
Good night. Carl, I'll see you tomorrow at 2 as well, correct?
Yes,
Great.
definitely.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Okay.